Welcome to the HuskGuys podcast. Oh, yeah.
What's up, everybody? It is November 14th. We played 10 weeks of football. We got 2 weeks left. We got Wisconsin coming up. We got Iowa coming up. And we got a special guest tonight. Big Ten Ben is with us. We are pumped to have Big Ten Ben because we need to make sense of the Big Ten West. It is an absolute dumpster fire. It is gorgeous. It is beautiful. It is a complete mess. And there's nobody better to make sense of it than Big Ten Ben. Before we jump in to Big Ten Ben, a little note from our sponsors, Land and Lore. Thanks to Land and Lore for being a sponsor of the pod. Men's natural skincare product line from the heart of the nation, Omaha, Nebraska, or somewhere where Big Ten Ben has been. He has lived. He has been there. He knows what it's all about. Use code HuskGuys10. Get 10% off Land and Lore. Second promotional sponsor from Pipeline Jerky. Ben is also an advocate of Pipeline Jerky. Buy a bag of jerky, directly supporting the Huskers offensive line. And then the HuskGuys store, go to HuskGuysStore.com. If we die, we die. That's what we're going for. We got all the good stuff. We got the hats. We got shirts. Bring my microphone over here. And without further ado, Big Ten Ben, welcome to the HuskGuys podcast. Thanks for joining us.
It is incredible to be here. As we said before we even started recording and hit that red button, we have been friends online for many years. You guys have been a great supporter of me and all of my outlandish Nebraska takes and running into the great Cornhuskers out in the streets of New York City. And I have appreciated the support. I've appreciated the interactions. It is great to be here to talk some Big Ten football, to talk Nebraska trying to get bowl eligible in the final 2 weeks of 2023.
Can't beat it. All right. So for the folks who don't know you, we're huge fans of your work. I love how you cover the entire Big Ten. I love how you jump in and out of the Huskers, but you're also wildly entertaining. You do stuff on the street. You do stuff on the streets of New York. You've got the microphone all around. Give the Husker fans like a little glimpse into how you became Big Ten Ben, your background, and include obviously your stop in Nebraska too.
So that is really how Big Ten Ben was formed. I always say that I grew up and I learned everything I need to know about college athletics from my time at Omaha, Nebraska. I went to Syracuse. I'm originally from California, so I went from the West Coast to the East Coast. But my first job out of college was at Channel 3, the CBS affiliate, KMTV, 3 News Now in Omaha, Nebraska. So I was there for 2 years, from August 2016 until August 2018. My sports director, Adam Kruger, is still there. He went to Nebraska. He's a huge fan of UNL. He got me up to date on everything that I needed to know, history, perspective, all that goes into truly being a part of Husker Nation. So it was interesting for me because most of my experience with Nebraska was Taylor Martinez and seeing them in the Big 12 and Ndamukong Suh and all of that stuff. I didn't really understand the perspective of the glory years of the Cornhuskers in the 80s and the 90s under Tom Osborne. So that was the historical perspective that I think you really need to truly appreciate to understand where Nebraska fandom comes from and where the expectation and the love for that football program and university comes from. I would tell everybody that I had ever met that being in that sports market on a Saturday during the fall, being inside Memorial Stadium in Lincoln with 92,000 around you is a religious experience. We would lead the Saturday newscast. It wasn't like, hey, welcome in. Here's the news you need. It was, hey, welcome in. Ben, what was the Husker score? What were the highlights from the Nebraska game against insert Big Ten opponent here? I would honestly say, and maybe this is slightly off color, that unless there was a catastrophe in the state of Nebraska from as far east as the Omaha border alongside Iowa to as far west as the Colorado border, Nebraska football is the biggest thing by a very, very big margin, pretty much each and every day, but of course amplified on fall Saturdays.
Yeah, I love that. It's great to hear from an outsider who comes in and experiences it too, because I think, Andrew and I, so we grew up in the 90s, we experienced the 90s success, but then there is this just insatiable appetite. And it's one of the reasons we've, been successful with us guys. That's why we're doing the podcast too, is there's just never enough. We listened to dozens of podcasts already. There's already a ton of stuff that exists for all right, this isn't enough. I need more stuff. I need more news. I need more insight. I need to talk about it more. And so, yeah, you saw it firsthand. I mean, it's it. That's it.
It's no doubt about it. It is. And it's everything about it. Even going to, press conferences during spring ball as you learn about the recruiting class that's coming in, and when everybody converges on Memorial Stadium or everybody converges on whatever practice or media availability there is, you can see the fervor for it. I think you can be cynical, certainly from the outside perspective at times. I'm like, why are we optimistic once again that Mike Riley is going to turn this around and lead a double-digit win season? But that's the beauty of fandom in general. That's the beauty of the Nebraska Cornhuskers fan base on top of it, right? That's the beauty of GBR. It's why you can walk by people and say GBR and you get that incredibly enthusiastic and emphatic response. It's the disappointment of the year coming to a close. But by the time you get to April and May, it's all right. We're going 9-3, 10-2 this year, and we're going to win the Big Ten West. It's the beauty of it all, and it's why it means so much. And that's why I find the passion. Yeah, 100%. A couple additional games, who knows?
Don't count us out yet.
Hey. Forget about the last two. Those are behind us. Now that you're outside of Nebraska and you're covering the broader network or the broader Big Ten, do you have a perspective on is everybody like this? I mean, I don't know. We don't know. It's are there other fan bases that are very similar on the same level? Now that you've covered a variety?
I think so. I think the neighbors to the east in Iowa have a passion that Nebraska fans feel as well. There's something beautiful about certain Big Ten markets for sure, not having that large professional sports team in that scale as well, like Nebraska, like Iowa. A lot of the other states do, but even Madison is a little bit different than a Milwaukee or a Green Bay, but the entire state of Wisconsin kind of all bleeds the Badgers. Minnesota has their pro teams, but there's a difference to it. I think Big Ten West fans feel a certain passion to their schools as opposed to the Big Ten East. The Big Ten East is too used to being excellent and elite and excelling at what they do when you have the schools like Michigan, like we're seeing now, Ohio State, Penn State. It's a different kind of fandom. It's a different type of fervor. Still very passionate fan bases, but there's something about the Big Ten West and the beauty of that division within the conference that there's a certain appreciation, I think, for when times are good and understanding why times are bad. But yeah, I mean, listen, there's nothing like Nebraska fandom. There truly isn't. And there's nothing like I've ever experienced being among any other college fan base, Big Ten or otherwise, that is truly like the Huskers.
Let's talk about the Big Ten West. Can we talk about the Big Ten West?
Please.
So it's November 14th. There is currently a 5-way tie for second place of the Big Ten West. Nebraska, Minnesota, Northwestern, Wisconsin, and Illinois are all 3-4 in the conference.
Yeah.
And
keep your heads up.
Might I add, if Iowa loses to Illinois and Nebraska beats Wisconsin, Nebraska is playing for the Big Ten West title. So, Ben, let me put you on the spot. Who do you think is going to win the Big Ten West, and why do you think it's going to be Nebraska?
I mean, listen, on the HuskGuys podcast, what else can I say except Nebraska has a chance, right? Before they get to Iowa, though, they have to beat a Wisconsin team they have not since joining the Big Ten. But hey, there was always this year. Listen, Wisconsin's abysmal right now. I don't think Nebraska should be the underdog. I think I saw the spread today as I was starting to do some research for week number 12. That Wisconsin's a 6.5-point favorite. I know the game is in Camp Randall, but Wisconsin shouldn't be laying a touchdown to anybody at this juncture. And maybe some of that pressure off Nebraska, unlike the last 2 weeks when they were slightly expected to win a football game, even though they ended as the slight underdog against Maryland. Maybe that helps Matt Rule and company into that game in Camp Randall against the Badgers. I think Luke Fickell's going to figure it out, by the way, in Madison. But right now, things are very, very dire for that Wisconsin football program. So I am hoping selfishly that maybe we get to that Black Friday game and the Heroes Trophy game, and it's for all the marbles in the Big Ten West. How beautiful would it be? A virtual playoff for the Big Ten West. In the final weekend, this division exists. The swan song of the Big Ten West is, I think, the most beautiful thing you could ever see. Pure mediocrity across the board.
It's
but
the
you
worst
have
offense
no idea. Everybody. That's the thing that's crazy, is with all of the Iowa offensive struggles and the jokes that Brian Ferentz and Kirk Ferentz have welcomed, and frankly, I've made the same, Iowa's the only team in conference play in the Big Ten West division that has a positive point differential
It's crazy.
The only issue was Iowa's the only team that hasn't scored at least 115 points in conference play as well. That's the beauty of the Big Ten West. You just look at the records, you look at the standings. It's all there in front of you.
Now you're the hosting Sports Grid now.
Yeah.
I see. Now it describes itself as better insight and analysis. Does that make you good at betting?
You would think so. I like to say that we welcome on smart people to the show and we get their expertise and insight on the actual gambling. Yes, that is, listen, you handicap the handicappers, as I like to say. When you have people on that actually have their own models and their power ratings and their algorithms, they're the smart people doing this for a living. I think the beauty of what we do at Sports Grid, and we do it on our College Football Today pregame show on Saturdays as well, is we explain the games, we break down matchups, we look at key players, all that stuff just through the odds, right? Like Wisconsin favored to win the football game, but really should they be based on this matchup? And thus we hoped that we can find a profitable action for people. Maybe it's Nebraska plus 6.5. Maybe it's the Huskers money line. Maybe it's this certain individual player prop. It's the same sort of game breakdowns and conversations you would see across any of the sports media landscape. We just do it from the odds perspective, kind of leading the conversation.
Yeah. So I just take the under in every game.
100%.
I'm pretty rich now, but
Absolutely
how do you typically bet?
Oh, I take the under in every Big Ten West game that I possibly can. That's the great thing about Nebraska, though, if I may say. From my time in Omaha, following this Nebraska Cornhuskers team, the defense was always a liability. There were some stars on offense, but the defense mightily struggled. Back in the Mike Riley era, obviously Eric Chenander under Scott Frost, that never panned out for whatever it was. What Tony White is doing right now, and I think I saw this from my guy Connor Happer, who is still there in Omaha, Nebraska. I think he works for 1620 The Zone now. He made the point, oh, by the way, just looking at the college football playoff rankings that were just unveiled, Georgia leapfrogged Ohio State. The Bulldogs now won. Ohio State 2. Michigan remains at 3.
Are we 6? Are we close to a shot?
Yeah, I think you're just on the outside. Oh, what is that? Kirk said Nebraska's 8. Yeah, Kirk Herbstreit just said Nebraska checked in at number 8.
We need Georgia. We need Georgia to lose.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess they don't control their own destiny. But one of the things that I find fascinating about this version of Nebraska, and as Connor Happer said, get Tony White off the Broyles Awards list as one of the 57 nominees, so everybody doesn't think about Tony White, the outstanding defensive coordinator who was the DC for a few seasons for my alma mater in Syracuse. If he had to go anywhere, I'm glad it's Lincoln, Nebraska. But they have brought back that physicality up front, which is something Matt Rule has relied on in his stops previously. And it is that black shirt mentality back for this Nebraska football program. And because of that, they have been elite defensively, the third best rushing defense in all the country, which Andrew has made those unders very, very profitable this year on Nebraska. They can't make them low enough. In fact, if we're getting ready for history in the Heroes Trophy,
God, it's got to be.
We see less than 27.5, which was the Iowa Rutgers closing total, to make history once more.
I think you tweeted out. You tweeted out Iowa's had like the 6 lowest betting totals in the last 2 seasons in the history of like football.
Ever.
It's got to be 20.
It's got to be. If Rutgers, who is a great defense, but not quite to Nebraska's level at this point, and Nebraska's offense isn't really good, and Iowa's offense, of course, as we know, is abysmal. No shot, of course, at the Huskers' offense and what they're doing on that side of the football this year, then you have to think there's a realistic chance it is less than 27.5. That game between Rutgers and Iowa was the first ever FBS total for any college football game in history since those numbers started being tracked back in 1995. That was less than 30, and it was 2.5 points less than 30. And the game, of course, still
22.
went under. Yeah,
that's 22.
We got to hope. We got to hope Nebraska and Iowa can at least get to 27, take off the hook, or maybe 26.5. And as I have done for every historic Hawkeyes total, I bet the under immediately when the line becomes available. I will do the same thing for Black Friday. It's hit every time. Andrew, in the 5 times.
6 of 7, 5 of 6, 6 of 7.
So the five times in the last 13 games, dating back to the Floyd of Rosedale game last year at the end of November between Minnesota and Iowa. That game was 31.5. Their bowl game was 31.5.
That one wasn't even close either.
No, not even
like
close.
13-10, wasn't it?
All of them under. Iowa, Minnesota this year, Iowa and Northwestern at Wrigley Field, and then, of course, this past Saturday, Iowa and Rutgers. Every game that at the time was either the lowest total or co-lowest total ever, all of them have hit the under. It's beautifully consistent.
I love that you're doing it almost like a sarcastic bet, and you just keep winning.
That's the thing. Like, the bit becomes reality, where I have done it to make the point, because I love to do this on our shows or any content or any platform I'm involved with. I will say your grandkids will ask you what you did. How did you bet the Iowa Rutgers total? And you will tell those grandkids that Papa was on the right side and bet the under, because we all want to live on the right side of history. And it's become a bit that has been profitable now 5 times in a row. It's beautiful.
You've got great perspective across. I mean, let's focus on the West, because that's the most beautiful conference. But the fan bases themselves, the Iowa fan base, the Wisconsin fan base, and then you can touch on like the Minnesota one as well. I think that's kind of interesting. But Iowa, like, for all of their faults, and we like to mock them too, they're in a way like they're doing exactly what we should be doing with this team right now. I think Dirk Chatelain had a tweet that was kind of going around saying basically like, Iowa's doing the difference between Iowa's 8-2 and Nebraska's 5-5 is that Iowa's embraced that their offense stinks and they've managed the game accordingly. And Nebraska hasn't done that yet. But like, do the Iowa fans appreciate that? That's my question one. My second question around like Wisconsin is like, how in the dumps are they on the last couple games? Do they think Fickle's got it? Like, do they, give me the mindsets of both of those fan bases.
Yeah, right. Like, fandom is a very interesting thing. There's one end of the spectrum, there's a realistic end of the spectrum, and there's probably somewhere in the middle that's a good majority or a more fair sample size of how things actually are. I would say for the most part, Iowa fans are happy with winning, but realize there is a certain ceiling to what they do. And they've known it for the better part of the last 2.5 decades, because that's where Kirk Ferentz has been, right? It's a great thing to be able to be 8-2. Pretty much 125 college FBS football programs would ask for that. If you said before the year you're going to win 8 of your first 10 games and have the possibility of playing in your conference championship, but there's the picture on the field of how it all comes together that I think Iowa fans, who again are realistic about their football program, have an understanding of where they are and where they can get to start to evolve, I think, is more what it is, instead of like, hey, we're going to rival Ohio State. We're going to go rival Alabama. We're going to go win national championships. More so, hey, the product is just not really with the 21st century. We're so great on defense. This defense deserves better than what our offensive scheme has looked like the last half decade. I think Wisconsin's going through it a little bit. Fickle's a different individual, right? He's outside of the Wisconsin family. The Wisconsin family for the last 25 years has been Barry Alvarez, and then Brett Bielema, who knew the Big Ten West, and then Paul Chryst, who, of course, knew Wisconsin and was their head coach. And they kept things all very similar. Hog mollies up front, focus on the defensive side of the football, establish the run, and they were really good at it. They were elite at that. Luke Fickell is modernizing the football program, and I think he's going to do some great things, as he is one of the most successful head coaches in the sport in the last 6 to 7 seasons. But it's going to take some time, because you're completely putting a facelift on this football program, and the personnel is not exactly built for the dairy raid or for a modern type of football, but that will come. And I think those with cooler heads are going to allow Luke Fickell some of that breathing room to figure things out. So I think as you look at it, Dave, there's like the realistic fans that are very understanding of where their programs are. And there are those fans that are very happy with the success that their team or program sees. And then, of course, there's going to be some others that are like, this is broken, this is terrible, fire this guy immediately. But that's the beauty of college football, and that's the beauty of fandom.
Well, so I'm gonna add to that. And here's a hot news bomb drop that just came across. Chip Kelly's about to get fired from UCLA. That just hit the Twitterverse right before we went live. So there's a bomb for you.
Why?
So I don't know. I didn't do it. Yell at me.
What are you doing? Why would you even say that?
Yeah, I'm not the athletic director. I didn't do it. I don't know. But
who do you think they are?
But so here's the new age Big Ten. I think I'm fascinated with, I'm sure you are too, Ben, is you've got USC coming to town, you got UCLA coming to town, you have Washington coming to town, Oregon coming to town. And How much? So here's, and this is kind of like a broader question, but so Nebraska came into the Big Ten, and I truly thought we were just going to dominate this conference. I think we all did. And we did for like a hot second, at least as far as like winning all the games we should have.
Right.
And I just thought the Big Ten was boring and it's slow and it's just a brutal brand of football. And we were this fast, sexy offense that could like make a ton of plays. And they have just slowly ground us into this useless version of Nebraska. And like the Big Ten just grinds you, and it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how exciting you are. They're going to grind you to a pulp. So a broader question on like, I think Fickle is trying to do what he did at Cincinnati and bring speed and all the other things to Wisconsin. One, is that going to work? And then the follow-up question to that is like, is this Big Ten model, the Iowa model, to just grind you down, the Minnesota model, just grinding you down, all these guys who just like bleed you to death in November? Do you think they'll do that to UCLA and Washington in late November when they got to play Purdue November 15th in the freezing cold, or they got to go up and play Minnesota, or they got to go up and play Michigan? I mean, what do you think Luke Fickell works, and do you think those models in UCLA and USC are going to work in this brutal Big Ten West?
Yeah, first off, the 2024 schedule makers in the Big Ten Conference office there in Rosemont, Illinois, pansies, if you ask me, because the West Coast teams like UCLA and USC, the furthest trip they go past the Missouri is, I think, November 5th, is that first weekend of November. We don't have any games in Evanston or Madison late in November. That was super, super lame. But good for teams like Nebraska and Iowa that get to go west in LA at the end of November. So that should be very fun. It's a really interesting question, Dave, because there is that evolution that happens in college football that I think even if the Big Ten was not expanding, Iowa fans would still be calling for, and Wisconsin fans would still want to not just win the Big Ten West with a 9-3 record and then get demolished by Ohio State by 31 points in the Big Ten title, but truly have an opportunity to compete for conference championships. That being said, I don't think Lincoln Riley is going to walk in and immediately win 10 games. He might, just because USC is talented and could win 10 games in any league around the country. But one of my best friends at work, Kevin Walsh, who's a part of the College Football Today show, is of the belief that Lincoln Riley and the Trojans next year with Malachi Nelson are going to come in and dot up whatever Big Ten defense for 70 points. I'm like, not a chance, man. They're not used to seeing that brand of football either. So USC is going to be like, whoa, what are we getting into? The same way that Iowa and Minnesota might be like, whoa, what are all these guys doing 5 wide and the quarterback's by himself, not under center with nobody next to him? There's going to be that adaptation, I think, from every side, at least on the consistent basis. Of course, you see it in college football. It's not like they're truly going to be shocked by the shotgun formation or pistol formation or RPO or whatever it is. But I think just that consistency of playing that style each and every week is going to start to find your adaptations each and everywhere. Kirk Ferentz is still there. Phil Parker's still there. Iowa's defense is still going to be elite. Even Penn State and Michigan right now, who were 2 of the top 10 teams in the country entering this past weekend, rely on the defense. Ohio State's defense is far superior to its offense this year. This might be the first year since 2012 that Ohio State has not averaged at least 35 points per game on offense, but it's their defense leading them into a potential Big Ten championship. So yeah, it's like you go back and forth a little bit with how all of that is going to work. It's interesting because when fans get accustomed to a certain style of football that has led to success, like in Madison, like in Iowa City, like in Lincoln as well, you want that success, and you don't really want to sit back and be patient to allow that to grow. And it takes different iterations, as we have seen in Lincoln, Nebraska. Listen, I was on the desk live at KMTV 3 News Now in Omaha, Nebraska, on the day that Scott Frost was hired. I uttered the words live on air. If this guy doesn't figure it out for Nebraska, then nobody ever will, right? That's how much belief I had in Scott Frost. The prodigal son returned home to lead the Cornhuskers back to glory.
So I think I said that too, but here we are.
Exactly, right? So you think things are a perfect format and a fit, and we all still are waiting for Scott Frost's offense and the Big Ten to adapt to it and all that stuff. But then you start to find the medium and what actually works for a specific program. I think Matt Rule is doing that. I think we've seen success in other Big Ten West areas. I think UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon are going to be just fine in the Big Ten. It's going to be more of a national conference, though, as college football has become a little bit more of a professional system, and how that all works, that some of the geographic and the regional ties that made the Big Ten are going to be very different as we get that professional system in college sports.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's great perspective across the board. I mean, for us, a perfect example of like trying to bring the Oregon offense to Nebraska, and like you can't handle when Minnesota and Iowa hold the ball the entire first quarter.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, you congratulations, you get 2 drives in the first half.
Because
they're just going to hold the ball. And then, he gets frustrated and like, he's like, Adrian, just, throw a bomb, and then they intercept it. Yeah. And then before you know it, you've had 2 drives in the first half and you're down, 10-0 or 14-0. And it's like, what, I wouldn't even have the ball. So I guess that's the thing of like, it's a perfect example of, the Oregon offense coming here. I don't think Oregon will have a problem, but some of the other ones, like when they hold the ball for the first, 2 quarters, and you just don't even have any drives. You don't even get a chance. That to me is what the Big Ten is. They just bleed you out, and they grind everybody down. It's not just Nebraska; it's everybody that they're playing, and that's how you end up with a 5-way tie in November.
Turns out, Chip Kelly, by the way, I was just looking it up. Way worse than I thought.
Is it fake?
Huh?
Is it fake?
No, I'm just saying he is way worse than I thought, and also these rumors are very real. He's like 500 all time there, but
that's also the crazy thing. It's like Chip Kelly
against ranked teams, and he just couldn't quite get over the hump. I mean, I always thought they were just decent. They just never quite got from like average to really good. But anyways, back to you, Ben. What I found interesting, I was just doing a little research before. You are all over the place in terms of your media coverage and like content curation and creation and everything. So you got a podcast, your TV and streaming on Sports Grid. The podcast was The Morning After. Is that right?
So that was the morning show that I used to host, was The Morning After at Sports Grid. It has recently moved into a combination of the 2 former morning shows to become one mega morning show called The Early Line. So that's our TV/radio simulcast each and every day from 8 to 11 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah.
Got it. So we got Sports Grid. Twitter, you have over 22,000 tweets all time. Nice job on that.
Thank you.
You're cooking.
A lot of them Big Ten tweets.
It's got a lot
of them Big Ten tweets.
A lot of it bet the under.
A lot of them have been about running into Nebraska fans on the streets of New York City, which has been
great content.
Crazy how often that happens, right?
It just keeps happening. What medium do you like enjoy the most? And then, I mean, what's the screen time on your phone looking like?
Oh, at least 6.5 hours every week. I wish it was less. I love Twitter. I really do, right? Like Twitter can be vitriol and Twitter can be an angry place. But I think for sports media, the immediate connectivity that you have on Twitter is never going to die, right? I have a lot of friends that are not in sports media and are not on Twitter nearly as much. And they're like, is Twitter going to last? Is it called X now? Like, is it going to stick around? Are you nervous? Did you get threads and all this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I've looked at it, all that stuff. Like, Twitter's always going to be there because it's so ingrained in sports that when we're watching a game, we fire off a tweet live on Twitter. We're not going to go to TikTok to do that. It's the immediacy of Twitter that I think is beautiful for sports. I can't speak for other areas and what it might be, but for sports, it is always going to be there. So my dream job and what I want to do in life is to be the host of College Game Day. I've always said that. So college football, college basketball are my 2 favorite sports. So Sports Grid is a wonderful, wonderful place. And the opportunity that we have built for the College Football Today show, which is our version of Game Day, our pregame show each and every Saturday morning from 9 to noon, is exactly what I want to do. So that's the avenue I want to be in. If the Big Ten Network comes calling, hey, Big Ten Ben has a nice ring to it there as well. So anything that's kind of just around the passion of college football, that's what I want to be a part of. I like that so much more than professional sports. Now, I'm not going to ever turn down a job, but college football, the passion, the tradition, how there's always an eye on the future, yet it's always tied to history as well. I find that marriage so beautiful in college football and college basketball, and what specific programs and universities and geography can mean to people. I think that's a little bit more ingrained than that of professional sports. So I will always love college football and college basketball, and really any collegiate sport a little bit more than I do professional. So that's exactly what I'm trying to work in at all points, to be around that, to build my brand in that. That's really been my favorite thing.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that I couldn't have said it better. I think that's like the biggest thing that divides college and the NFL too. I mean, obviously there's territorialism in the NFL, but there's nothing quite like, a river splitting two college towns from each other, and just, couple, 50 miles down the road is the most hated school, and that type of local rivalry and stuff just gets the juices flowing on a Saturday morning. That's great. But
no doubt about it.
My final question, just because you mentioned College Game Day, if you don't mind, Dave, I'm going off script, but we were talking about, Pat McAfee. He's brought a lot of love, a lot of juice to that show, a lot of, huge amount of energy, but apparently there's maybe been some disagreements and stuff. If you're going on the show and I'm an ESPN exec, what are you going to tell him? Like, this is what the show needs. This is what needs to happen to take Game Day to the future.
I think they need to go back a little bit more on just appreciating college football. I think they're kind of getting away from that a little bit. I remember waking up on the West Coast as a kid, and just the idea of being on those college campuses, getting to have a small snapshot of what life is like for that tailgate, for that pregame, for that atmosphere is the beauty of it. Now, I can't say that I watch it as much as I would like to, because I'm also live on air during those times over the last few years. So I don't really know what the product looks like now as opposed to even 3 to 5 years ago. But I think that's the thing that a lot of college football fans, at least as I glean from reactions on social media, think it's becoming a little bit too commercialized, which I guess is the story for college football and college sports as a whole, which makes sense, right? It's the TV networks that have really driven the TV revenue that drives conference realignment and all these sweeping changes that we see in collegiate athletics. So it does make sense. And if you follow the buck, you can start to see the reasoning why. I think it's just once you're there, once you're on that college campus, to try to allow the audience to experience and feel what it means to be with that fan base, with that tailgate, with that certain area. That's the beauty of it. That's why I love what I do. That's why I want to do what I do, is to kind of have those shared experiences and provide that passion and excitement for people. So not so much commercially, but just having that organic, authentic experience of what a game day on College Game Day is really like, I think is the beauty of it all.
Love it. I want to be respectful of your time, Ben. You told me you give me a strong half hour. You've given me a very, very strong half hour.
Appreciate that.
But, let's round this thing off. Last question for you. Then because you got the morning show. You got a full day of content tomorrow. Nebraska. How do you think Nebraska is viewed nationally? Like, what's the outside perspective for Nebraska? We're in the fishbowl inside of it. What do folks outside of Lincoln and Omaha think of it?
I don't think people understand, Dave, how much people care about Nebraska football. I don't think people truly understand why Nebraska believes they should be a good team. After looking at the past 10 years or so and thinking, wouldn't 8 wins be sensational? Wouldn't 6 wins in bowl eligibility be enough for everybody to be happy with where this program is? But once you have lived in Nebraska, even for a small amount of time, like 2 years, not even growing up in the fan base or with ties to the program, you get the sense of why people are as passionate as they are and why the expectations seem so altered from people that are in and around the program and in the state of Nebraska to those outside and that national perspective. It's that desire to experience what your parents did and what your grandparents did and what you did as a kid, to have that national relevance once again. And I think Nebraska is going to get it because the brand is still incredibly strong. But I don't know if people in the national audience have that understanding of why Nebraska, especially in modern times, thinks they should be contending for national championships. And that's why my time at Omaha, learning the history of the program, anytime I come into contact or conversations with individuals about that very thing, I try to explain and reiterate, this is why Husker fans feel the way they do, which I think is a beautiful thing. So I think nationally people are like, I don't really get why you think you should be a 9-win football team at their minimum. But I think once you start to realize that, it's that kind of lapse, I guess, between what Nebraska fans expect and what national media believes Nebraska fans should anticipate and should be expecting. But I like to lean with the Nebraska fans in the hopes of the return to glory. And if we die, we die in believing in Matt Rule, the program builder, bringing the Nebraska Cornhuskers football program back to the Pantheon. I do believe it's happening. Maybe I got caught up in the Kool-Aid during my time there. But I believe in the offseason national championships. I believe that Nebraska will be back contending for conference championships and maybe even college football playoff spots here sooner rather than later.
No, I love it. I think it's a great way to go out, man. I appreciate you got all the buzz down at the yeah, man. It's a total illness of
it's not an illness.
I'm laughing because like Saturday I was like in just the darkest death spiral I've ever been in.
It's pathologic though. Yeah.
Tonight my entire lineup is like how I think we can still win the Big Ten, even though I was like on Saturday I was like I don't think we're gonna win ever again, and now I'm like I think we're back. Actually, we're back.
But I love the tweets, by the way, from HuskGuys that are always just like, what if we just won and never stopped winning? That was my favorite because it's just like,
what if
what a great strategy. Has anybody employed that yet?
Why don't we just try that? Why don't we just try to win the rest of our games? Why don't if I could just text Cruel that just start winning, please.
So much interaction every week of people up in arms, or they're like, yeah, actually, you know what?
Yeah. We should do that.
This could be the week that happens.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
And honestly, it kind of does go through my head. Like, you know what? Ball bounces our way today.
What if Jeff Sims just stops turning the ball over 4 times a game?
Jeff, here's a snap. The guys in red are on your team. Just give it to them.
What if instead of acting like a JV high school quarterback, you caught a snap? What if? That's not hard, right? It's a very low floor. He's got to jump over.
So listen, as we wrap up here, I just want you guys to know I'm with you, not only in my fandom and my ties, and that my heart still sings for the Cornhusker football program, but I also bet Nebraska over 6.5 wins with some plus money to the over because I had belief in Matt Rule and the talent on the roster, and a main reason being I thought Jeff Sims was going to elevate this offense with a really strong ground game this year to an area. Yeah, still might, right? So it needs to happen against Wisconsin, and it needs to happen in Iowa City against the Hawkeyes. And maybe, just maybe, there is an opportunity to win a 7th game, and maybe, just maybe, go to Indianapolis the next weekend with a Big Ten championship.
7th, actually. We're going to go.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, think about if we get to play Michigan without sign stealing. I mean, that's really, we're just a couple plays away. We're what, probably 2 or 3 plays away? 4, 5.
I love, by the way, Matt Rule's turn of face on the whole Michigan sign stealing scandal. Once I think he started to realize what had happened, because I think at first it wasn't as established of how extensive the operation was and where Connor Stallions had or had not been within the Big Ten Conference, because Michigan fans were sharing out his explanation of why we need helmet technology and headsets in the actual helmets throughout college football, which is very, very true. And Matt Rule is completely spot on in that assessment. He went from that to being like the champion of Michigan, of like, hey, sign stealing is not that big of a deal, to all of a sudden being like, well, now you messed with my boys. Yeah. And now we got problems. Yeah. So that would be wonderful whenever that comes up next, you know?
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. My biggest issue with the whole thing is it's actually more along the lines of what I haven't done. So I consider myself close to a Connor Stallions if I would do anything to save this program, including launching a jerky business or doing any sort of illegal espionage. It bothers me that I don't have a 45-page manifesto. I've been working on it. Ben, I'll share it with you as soon as it's done.
You need to start growing. Yeah, share me on the Google Doc, please.
I very rarely get humbled by another super fan who out superfans me, and he out superfan me. He did.
Yeah, and imagine him explaining this to like his loved ones, like, yeah, I'm working on my manifesto. I got a flight to this school tomorrow.
Yeah,
I got my covert operation going on that I'm covering today. Like, I'm just scared of that guy. I feel like he's like outside my house listening to us.
He's a maniac. Yeah, he's probably listening to this right now.
He's listening to every podcast. He's tapping phones. This guy is wired in.
All right, Big Ten, Ben. We got you for enough. You got to go to bed. You got early stuff tomorrow. We appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you guys.
Plain jerky's on its way.
Heck yeah. Appreciate it. GBR, as always.
GBR. Thanks, man.
All right.
Yo, you hop off. We're going to keep going.
Oh, sorry. I was waiting for the recording stuff. That's on me. Always love those awkward virtual goodbyes. Peace, guys. Thanks so much. See you guys.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right. That was Big Ten, Ben. Guy's a stud. Love that guy.
Great insight. It's super
Good
fun.
insight. We're gonna keep going because I got a lot more content to cover specifically about Nebraska, and I just got
Right.
I got some stuff to get off my chest.
Get
So
it. Let's get it. Let's
you
get
ready?
it. Thank you, Big Ten Ben. Appreciate you. That guy is an amazing follow on Twitter. Very underrated.
Good stuff. All right. So
Drop it, but go ahead.
now that Big Ten Ben is off, and we can dive into some Husker stuff. I got to talk. So my first thing, we're going to talk about this loss, but
Okay.
my first thing is how I actually watched this game and how I actually experienced the loss itself.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is important. And I've listened to enough. I've listened to a couple different podcasts, and some others have experienced the same thing.
Okay.
Did you have any issues with Peacock?
It was slow.
It's horrible. It was buffering. It was slow. I was like using it my phone. I had pushed it onto my TV.
I looked at Twitter and it was like 6 minutes ahead.
I mean, I couldn't. So here was, and this is what I specifically want to cover. So I couldn't. I mean, I must have paused it or something. I was behind you, and I was behind Dad. And I was behind everybody who was texting me and Twitter and everything. So I had to just go dark. I was like zero dark 30.
Yeah.
But then I made the mistake. On after we had punched the fumble out on Maryland's drive, right?
Okay.
So they were driving down like this third to last drive.
Oh, it was amazing.
So I pulled my phone out. I'm like, oh
Couldn't
my
believe
God, this is incredible. Like I was like about to text everybody.
Couldn't believe it.
And I had gotten a whole series, like 20 different horrible texts that were like, this is a disaster. This is the worst thing ever. I hate this team. Like all this stuff. I'm like, what just happened? We
Life is
just
good.
punched this out and we're about to win this game.
Driving 90 yards.
So I'm sitting there for the next like 5.5 minutes because it finally dawned on me that I was like 10 minutes behind everybody else. I'm getting just horrible texts. I'm getting calls, all this stuff. And then I watched the entire Purdy drive, which was extremely impressive.
Best time of my life.
Extremely impressive. And I can't even enjoy it because my phone is just exploding
for disasters.
horrible text. And I'm like, okay, so maybe it comes like maybe we missed the field goal, maybe we missed an extra point, maybe they come out and drive at the end, but I'm enjoying the Purdy drive. So Purdy's throwing darts. Yeah. We got Billy Kemp got a huge run. Followed by an Emma Johnson has a huge run.
Breaks his first one. Yeah, it was great. Life was good.
I mean, everything was happening. I was like, if Purdy's getting up, he's like pumping up the crowd. Memorial Stadium's going absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And
chanting. Purdy.
Still, even knowing, so then we're on the 5-yard line. Even knowing something horrible was about to happen, I still could not have predicted
how bad
we would throw a pass.
Yep.
With our third string quarterback who has not thrown a pass all season on the goal line.
Yeah.
So that was like, even knowing something horrible has happened, I still could not have predicted the depths of that, followed by our lights out defense giving up a 90-yard drive to follow that. Like that was like,
that's true. Yeah.
It was like all of that was so crazy, even though my Peacock experience was like, I was so far behind. It was a mess. I couldn't fast forward. I couldn't get through the commercials, all this stuff. Like even knowing something horrible was about to happen, I could not have predicted that.
Right. I mean, well, yeah. It's tough to forgive our coaching staff for making that decision. The first down play, to be clear, and because this has just it's been widely criticized in all the different podcasts. So here's where I end up on this.
First down or third down?
Starting with the first down play, right call. They were trying to run it up the gut. I don't know if it was an RPO, but for some reason Purdy pulled it from his gut, and then he ran, and then he just threw it. That stops the clock. Horrible play by Purdy if he did this on his own accord. No idea what he was thinking. No one was open because no one thought he was passing. I mean,
because it was a running play.
So that's, so you've got 3.5 minutes left. That could have been a run. That could have taken 30, 40 seconds off. So that's mistake number one. Number two, they ran it. Fine with that because everyone wanted them to run it. The third down play is tough because, like, the deal is that if you have a solid quarterback, that is an easy completion. Kemp had at least a step or two, but I don't know where the signals got crossed there. Coleman sort of stopped his route. Like he was kind of surprised that it was even coming, but he could have gone to Coleman. He could have gone to Kemp. I think a good quarterback just makes our O coordinators look terrific there. And that's where I think things fell apart a little bit for me, is that there was a lack of communication, there was a lack of execution, and in the end, if he completes it, life is good.
Yeah.
Because he didn't complete it, we look so stupid. Because
I think it's
run that ball, and right when we downed it there, I was immediately saying the same thing. I was like, you just need points, period. And our only way to do that should have been 3 straight runs. So if you maybe had better personnel, it's probably not a terrible call. It's 3rd and 8 from the or 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 from the 8-yard line. Like, of course you think about passing that.
But that's
like a good quarterback, maybe either throws it out of bounds or puts it like only where your receiver can get it, or it clocks it, and then you take the field goal, right? Like that's the
whole problem of the whole thing.
But that's the problem.
That's the problem. The whole thing is the coaching staff's thinking that they have like Marvin Harrison, and that right, like we don't. And that, it's like you're talking about a true freshman wide receiver, a little guy in Kemp who's not a goal line threat. You've got Bullock on the outside, and you've got a 3rd-string quarterback. That was his 3rd pass he's thrown in this calendar year.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, you gotta play to your personnel, and it was a bad call.
So I think
like any other team, maybe, or any team with a good QB or whatever, like, somebody that had been starting all game, this wasn't their first drive ever or second drive ever, but
I mean, I think that one's getting a ton
that's where it's gonna get criticism.
I think that rightfully so. I think that it's hard to put anything on the defense. Like they held them to 13 points. You should win 95% of your games at 13. Holding them 13 points. It is tough that the 2 worst drives.
The first flag of the game comes in.
The 2 worst drives the defense have had probably all season are those 2 drives, even though one of them turned into a turnover, and they punched the ball out like on the 5-yard line. But those are back-to-back 95-yard drives to like win the game for Maryland. And they were just weird, like broken coverages, and the penalty wasn't really a penalty, but they had a 25-yard run where they just checked into a play that they saw like odd man coverage on one side. So it was a little weird, because I think even then, if you say like, oh, hey, like if we wind the clock down and we kick a field goal, does the defense stand up? I'd like to think so, but they'd kind of just given up 2 straight drives anyways. Yeah. So
I think if you score,
it's different.
Everything's just looking so much. Yeah.
I mean, that was tough. God, what an ending. I think.
She's get bowl eligible too. I mean, if they kick that field goal, there's 0 chance that Maryland comes down and scores. I think the Black Shirts would have cooked them, but like there was just something so deflating about all of that.
Yeah, I think just
the 5th turnover, and then like Maryland gets 1 call pretty much after the pass interference. I think the defense was just like, all right, you guys, I've run 17 miles today. I can't do this.
So this is the hot topic across the radio and across Husker Nation is what on earth do you do with the quarterback? I mean, you've got Harburg's hurt.
I will answer simply that I think Saturday's Purdy.
I think he's hurt.
If Harburg is hobbled, which
I think so. It sounds like Harburg. They said today, Purdy and Sims are taking all the snaps.
Cannot play another down.
I mean, what is his deal?
I was defending him because I was like, you brought him here to have us win games. You brought him from Georgia Tech. You know he has potential. You need to develop him, take him under your wing, make him cut down on these turnovers. He can't. It's done. It's done. He can't. We know who he is. We knew who he was. We thought he could change. It turns he's like a guy that just like keeps cheating on his wife or a girlfriend or something, and you're just like, okay, I thought this guy could change. I thought that life was different now. I thought he'd learned from past mistakes, but it just like he can't become someone different. And Jeff Sims is that guy. He just can't seem to get out of his own head. Some of the passes he's throwing are
close. Not even close.
Like the safety is like about to catch it. He's got his hand up. He's like, I got it. This one's mine.
Yeah, and they're like Ian, like, he doesn't even move. He just is like, oh, he's probably gonna throw this up for grabs.
Well, and same with Harburg, and just like some of these reads, you're just like, where were you even taught to throw that ball? Because it couldn't have been there. And so I do also think we need a dedicated like quarterback specialist, analyst, coach to come in
Something.
and take the reins there. That's more off-season talk though. For Saturday, I don't like watching that Purdy drive. I don't think I saw anything that would make me say this guy can't start over Harburg.
He had a spark. I mean, that's what I was saying. I was like, he had a spark. He had the guys going. He's got a little mojo to him. He's got some confidence. He's got some charisma. He's got some energy.
Throwing motion.
He's I mean, it's so hard because he hasn't taken any first team reps all season.
No,
and he has no
for that too.
Like, there's a reason because he probably stinks in practice. And then we see one highly energized drive. But then he stunk last year. But then he also, he makes two pretty crucial mistakes on the last drive. So you're also like, he doesn't have a great handle of the offense. If he's pulling a ball that shouldn't be pulled and throwing a horrific interception. But he's got some mojo to him. He's got some juice. I think I don't know.
Purdy, I mean, he's not going to be able to run like Harburg, and he's not going to be able to have like the arm strength of Sims. But all he needs to do, is turn it over 2 times or less. Like that's it. And
possible.
And complete passes that are there. That the thing about a lot of the interceptions and turnovers is that like some of them are very promising plays.
Yeah.
Like you've got guys streaking on wide open.
Yeah, wide open.
And it's either a touchdown or you threw it over his head by 70 yards.
That's it's really hard. I mean, everybody's just hammering Satterfield. I mean, I think
he's not getting fired.
Well, but I think he's an easy scapegoat. But if you watch, players are open on every pass.
That's what I say too.
There's
situational decisions that we're making that are not good, but there are times again where your quarterback can fix a lot of the, like, even if you disagree with the play call, like passing on third, you put Caleb Williams in and you're making your coordinator look like a superstar.
But you look at his 2 interceptions, they're like, one, he's throwing into, him and Harburg, they throw into double coverage, but like a lot of them, they're airmailing a wide open Donnie.
Right. And it's like the play call's fine, the execution's fine until the ball is thrown.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll hold out judgment a little bit on Saturday. I mean, the judgment is deserved on the fact that they had. I mean, this is also getting a lot of run this week. Is they pushed Casey Thompson out for Jeff Sims? Like, so that the question comes back to the talent evaluation is very poor if that's your evaluation criteria. And maybe you made a wrong bet. But Sims had 30 turnovers at Georgia Tech. He had 30 touchdowns, 30 turnovers. So he was a turnover machine there.
A red flag.
And it's it's impossible to say, like, a lot of people are like, oh man, if we had Casey Thompson, we'd be 8-4. Not really. Like, we're also 4-8 with Casey Thompson. Like, he's not a god, but he's significantly more competent than anything on our roster. He can complete basic passes. He can catch snaps. He doesn't just Jeff Sims just dropped that ball again. Like, he somebody like
holding it, you were just like, this looks like that's gonna be a fumble. Like, if
he did it, like somebody just hit his finger, and it's like he's a giant. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 215 pounds. He's this monster of a man that like
just blows on the ball. That's coming up.
So I think they Rule and Satterfield deserve plenty of blame for putting their career on Sims, who just can't seem to get it together and not being able to coach him up to the point that's like, hey man, like, forget it. You're bigger than this. You're better than this. Like, I mean, his stats are crazy. It's like he's had 13 turnovers and 24 drives or something. I mean, it's like 40 to 50% of his drives end in a turnover, and it's just astounding. So I put more of it on the personnel than I do on Satterfield's ability to call plays, because I truly think players are open on that almost every single play, and they're just all open.
1 in every 9 snaps that Sims took.
What's that?
1 in every 9 snaps.
Is a turnover. Yeah, 1 every 9. Yeah,
That's
1 every 9. Well, it's 1 in every 9 snaps, but it's 40% of his possessions and didn't turnovers. So like every other one, he's only has one touchdown in 3 games. He has one touchdown, and it was the only touchdown was that Minnesota bounce pass ridiculous one that was like wide open.
That was insane. That was probably our best play.
Yeah, I just like. I mean, it's crazy because I mean, we're 10 games in. You've got enough of a sample size to like be super upset about it. I think that's why I was going into a spiral on Saturdays. Like I can list all the exciting offensive plays we've had on like my hand, and that's so frustrating to me that like you're just like, oh yeah, we had that one play, and then the other play, and then the other play. We're like,
right.
And then you watch one Bo Nix game, or one Caleb Williams game, or one Jalen Milroe game, or one like what's his face at LSU had 550 yards.
Yeah,
I mean he made more plays in the second half than we've made all season. It's just like we're dealing with this JV team.
With Nebraska, like clearly we are committing to the run. We're 5th in the country in our rush play percentage, 63.5% of the time we rush. And we're only averaging 4.5 yards a rush. So, I mean, like, if you're going to commit to something, like, be elite at that something.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, if like Air Force, like, clearly they're running the ball. Army's running the ball, but like they choose to do it, and in general, most years, like that's what they practice. They get so super crisp that they can get away with that offense that they just run the ball. For us, we're in a lot of 3rd and 6+ situations. And when you're in that situation, are you going to run again? So that's how you end up with 3 quarterbacks that all threw interceptions. I mean, good Lord, do you think they're like trading war stories back at the dorms? They're just like, hey, man, yours was the worst, though, Chubba. I don't know, Jeff. Yours was pretty bad.
I just always come back to struggling so much with, like, how? I mean, you see some of these stats that are getting thrown around. They're just horrific. It's like, I think it's like we have a -112 turnover margin in the last, like, whatever, 8 to 10 years. And the next closest is like -60. Like how we've had 60 more turnovers than every other team in the country. Like
Maryland had 4 turnovers and we had 5. We still went negative.
But I just don't get that. There are so many bad football teams in the country, and you're telling me that like none of the other division, nobody else struggles.
This is a Nebraska specific problem.
They're all Power 5, Big 10 elite
coaching staffs. 4 different staffs.
But it's like these are elite athletes. These are 4 and 5 star, not 5 star, but 3 and 4 star athletes that are elite and are recruited. And like none of like Jeff Sims, great quarterback. Heiberg is all American Nebraska kid. Like nobody can hang on to the ball. It's just.
I think we're gonna go to town in the portal. I think Matt Davis.
I mean, they have to
be getting the phones ready.
I hope they are ready because I think I think
Kalen is a great project. Like he's going to come in and
it's going to take him 3 years.
Day one. He's not a day one ready type guy. I think he's got a great arm and great potential for sure. But other than him, that they clearly didn't want to be playing Purdy this year. And now Sims, I mean, he came in by obligation and they clearly aren't going to play him the rest of the year. So they're gone, right? Like they're scout team bound or they transfer. You're redoing the entire quarterback room, and I think
quarterback room and wide receiver room. Yeah,
Harburg's not a D1 quarterback. I love the guy. He's clearly plays hard. He's clearly a good athlete. I think we need to use him like Taysom Hill basically, and turn him into this kind of gadget type quarterback. Run some wildcat, throw some passes here and there, but he should not be starting every single drive. So that's our solution for them. How do you see things going against Wisconsin?
So here's my now as we get back to positive vibes, because that was a lot of negativity. But it's hard to not be negative when you just the negative will shift into my positivity for the last 2 games. It destroys me that we just had 2 games. Michigan State was on a 6-game losing streak, and they just got massacred again last weekend. They are bad at football. Maryland was on a 4-game losing streak, had
Yeah.
lost to Northwestern, had lost to Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And like those are just like, I know we're bad, but oh my God, if you were to ever, like, this is a schedule on a silver platter to like win those 2 games. And then, so this is what then shifts into another of the best. This will be the single best opportunity we have to beat Wisconsin ever, is this Saturday. They will never be this bad.
I think that's probably fair. Yeah.
Truthfully, listen to this. They will never be this bad. They're coming off a loss. They got their brains beat in by Northwestern.
That was insane.
24-3.
Insane.
But they were, I watched the whole game. They couldn't even get a first down. Like they couldn't complete a pass. They couldn't stop Northwestern. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 games ago, Wisconsin lost to Indiana, who hadn't won a Big Ten game all season. So this is a Wisconsin game that's completely reeling. If you watch their post-game press conferences, they're like, Pickle's out there like, we're going to find out who wants to be here and who wants to transfer and who doesn't want to be here. They got culture problems. They got locker room problems. They got they have every problem you could possibly imagine. Their star running back is hurt. Mordecai doesn't seem to know, he can't, he was having a hard time getting his mojo going the last 2 games. It's truly, because they're going to, I agree with Big Ten, Ben. I think they're going to figure it out, and they're going to figure it out quick. Yeah. And they'll probably figure it out by next year.
Sure.
So, like, this is it. And again, it's like not to put too much pressure on it, but it's like, that was your chance to be Maryland. That was your chance. Like, that would be the worst Michigan State team you ever played. They don't even have a freaking coach. And so the fact that you blew that game and you blew the Maryland game, I think that's what's broken Nebraska fans. They're like, well, we've never beaten Wisconsin, and we haven't beaten it since 2012, and we've never beaten them in Camp Randall. But like, if there ever was an opportunity where they're starting running backs down, their quarterback is struggling, their team's quit, they've got locker room issues, they got culture issues, all sorts of stuff. This is it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said too. There was like a post game. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name now, but
the linebacker,
defensive player for Wisconsin. Yeah,
linebacker.
He was kind of. He wasn't going off negative, but he just looked defeated. And basically his entire point was just, we just nobody's showing up, nobody's doing the right things, nobody's doing what coaches are asking.
Love it.
And I'm just like, let's just, you guys should take one more week, kind of just, think about things. Don't practice.
Yeah, just go fight. Make sure you fight. Do lots of fighting.
Take a mental health break for 4 days. Come out against Nebraska very flat, lose, and then
figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, then they play with Minnesota for the last game of the year, and then they can become bowl eligible at that point.
Perfect. That's great. That's a happy ending.
I just think they're
reeling a little bit.
I feel better about the way that our, we're like just missing, it's frustrating, but like we should have won that game. We should have won the Michigan State game. Like,
after what we've been through, to be on the upswing, we think it feels a lot better than Wisconsin, who has been at the top of the mountain and is now tumbling down and can't seem to stop tumbling down.
Love it. Great. But we still haven't beat them, even though they're tumbling down. It's
I know.
It's like,
I'm very aware.
But that's I don't know. That's where it's like.
And like he said too, but like Ben said, he called it the dairy raid. Someone else must have called it that. That's just a fantastic name. But the dairy raid offense isn't really getting it done right now. And that is kind of my hope for us, is that Wisconsin had 3 points against Northwestern going in. I think it was into the 4th quarter.
Yes.
They're running with Wisconsin football. Their rush play percentage, so I mentioned ours was 63.5. That puts us at number 5 in the country. Wisconsin runs the ball 45.9% of the time. That's a full almost 20% below us. They're 105th in the country. That is, their 33.6 rushes per game is 91st in the country. Wisconsin football. I mean, like,
crazy.
You think of as just their bread and butter is give it to your running back and let the hogs up front go plow. And so I think they're getting away from that. They're trying to get away from that. They have a blueprint. They have a great quarterback in Tanner Mordecai. They just don't have the personnel around him at this point. So I think the Black Shirts are going to have very good day, if I had to guess. Mordecai is good. He can definitely pass. He can definitely run. I just don't know that they've really figured out their new identity quite yet, and so that's what gives me some hope.
Well, that's what I mean.
What does not give me hope is our offense versus their defense. And scoring 10 points feels
impossible.
Like it's going to be hard on a top 20 defense. Because here's the deal. These last few games, the reason I was so bummed about not beating Michigan State and Maryland is that the recipe for us to win right now, with all the injuries on offense, with all the issues finding our own identity and everything, is that we rely on a terrible defense that makes a lot of mistakes against our offense to put us in position to score points. Like, that's just the reality. And Wisconsin, even though their defense is not as good as it has been, it's a top 25 scoring defense. They're stopping teams enough. Like, it's going to be a very tall task to score more than, 17, 20. 10 feels like about the number we end up with. 14 on, man, we are cooking if we hit 14.
Well, you have to do the Purdue thing. You got to block a kick. You've got to do a special teams turnover. You have to do a pick six, something that we're gonna have 4 turnovers. Like, it's just gonna happen.
Not Purdy.
You have to accept it. It's gonna happen. So
then I'm on the Purdy train.
Yeah, 3 to 4. I mean, it's just you have to manage the game accordingly. I keep coming back to that Dirk Chatelain quote of like, appreciate that your offense stinks. Figure out how to manage around it. Manage the clock. Manage the game. Wind it down. Try to hope for but there is that formula, like that Purdue formula of like kind of grind things out. You strike one Malachi Coleman deep ball. You strike one Lloyd deep ball. That's it. You have one deep ball and you have one special teams touchdown, and hope your defense can hold up. And the way that Wisconsin's struggling, you'd hope that they can. It's just like this Braylon Allen come back and like have a heroic game, like God forbid. But it's tough. It's like, you just hope they can put it together. Like, I don't know. It's like Sims. We're all done with Sims, but like, what if he does actually play well? Like, doesn't seem possible, but what if he does?
I actually think that this comes down more to our running game. Like, you need the passing game to pick up some third downs and stuff here and there, but we're not passing that much. Like, I think the other part of things is that our running game, if we're gonna say, well, just don't pass, just never pass again, I would love that, to never pass again. I'd love to run the damn ball into eternity until I'm laying in a coffin somewhere, but that's not going to happen if your offense or if your running game is just not like elite. Like, they're going to continue to stack the box. They have these, the safeties for Maryland were like, 9 yards back from the line of scrimmage. They're just like waiting for you to run it. So that's the thing, is that, like, if you look at our last 5 games, we had 21 pass attempts, 28 against Michigan State, 11 against Purdue, 17.
11 in a win. 11 in a win.
This is embarrassing. 11 in a win, 17 against Northwestern. We won that. 24 against Illinois. I mean, even going back, we've had one game over 25 passing attempts. It was Michigan State. We were 12 of 28.
Yeah.
That's
like, you manage the game, you manage the clock down, you trust the defense, you're able to play. Like, it's you hate to call it the Iowa game, but it's like, we just need to survive the next 2 weeks to make it to the off season. You cannot, God, it's just like, you can't lose 4 straight going to the off season if you're rolling. No, you cannot do it. It's going to be the longest off season ever. There's no way to recover from that. You just can't lose 4 games going into it's just, you can't do it. So you got to win one of these. You have to win one of these. You got to either beat Wisconsin or beat Iowa. You have to. But one of those,
you had to predict it. How's this scenario play out the last 2 games?
I think we beat Wisconsin and lose to Iowa.
I think I'm opposite. Because of just the storybook ending of getting to 6-6, the fans would just rush the field.
That'd be awesome.
Would for no reason.
I think. I honestly, like, I watched the whole Iowa game and I watched Wisconsin. I was watching the Iowa-Wisconsin game on split screen. It was like after watching Nebraska's game, it was like just torture. That's like, we're like joking with Big Ten football stinks. And it's like you go from watching our disaster of a
Northwestern
game.
this last weekend.
Yeah. So, the Northwestern Wisconsin game
Yeah.
was on split screen with Iowa versus Rutgers.
Okay.
It's like watching paint dry. Like both of them are so bad. There's no excitement. There's no gameplay. There's no game breakers on either side of the ball. It's just a complete mess. But but both. I mean, Iowa's a little more nerve wracking because their defense is so freaking good.
Yeah.
We're not even going to get a first down against their defense. Their offense is also atrocious. It truly, like the Iowa game will truly be 10-10, 7-3. It'll be like the equivalent of what Northwestern and Iowa did. Of like it'll be 7-3, but like somebody's got to make a play. I truly think the optimistic side is like there's a scenario where we can win both of these.
Whew, baby.
I think everybody thinks we're going to lose
Let's do
the
that.
next two.
Yeah.
I think all of Husker Nation is just broken and like
I think we're just so but I think we do need to take a step back and recognize like these two programs we're about to face. One of them is completely reeling, and Iowa wants like nothing to do with their coaches anymore.
Yeah, that's true. They're dumb parents.
And Iowa's offense is so bad.
So bad
that there's no reason we can't go 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2. Really, like all of these things are totally 100% in play. But that this is the reason that you hired Matt Rule is you wanted to go from that program that just kept losing these winnable games, which the last 2 weeks were. Now is when this is, I mean, huge gut check time. Like I just want to see us come out and have like the winning formula for these types of teams, because this is everything is for next year. At this point, everything is just like if we end up in a miracle scenario where we could win the Big Ten West and go get absolutely, our balls chopped off by Ohio State or Michigan, like, so be it. That'd be awesome. I'm totally rooting for it. But the reality is, like, even with that, everything is for next season and the season beyond. 6-6 is for recruits. 6-6 is for
it's just winning. Winning's contagious. Winning is contagious. And like if you're just
it's everything that comes around the bowl game.
Yeah, it's the winning being contagious thing, and so is losing, and that's what's like losing has been contagious, and it's like now we have, I mean, the 3 losses this season are the exact same losses we've had the last 5 years, and so that's what's like. I mean, it's just a program wide, like when in crucial moments, we just don't have players that can step up and win the game, and we haven't for years, and so then you're like, can I believe in Rule, like can he motivate them to the point that he can get us over the hump and like make the big play and make the But it's like Michigan State lose by 3, lose by a game losing field goal to Maryland on, a ton of players not making. Nobody stepped up in Maryland. Nobody stepped up. No wide receiver stepped up. No quarterback stepped up. No defensive player stepped up with a big play. Like, in the Minnesota game, same deal. Anthony Grant, the fumble, like Jeff Sims with the interception, like all of these things are like, you just don't have the elite player to step up. But that's like, I mean, the Iowa win last year carried us for 11 months. We don't need much.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need much to carry this fan base, but you can't lose 4 straight.
Oh God, no. We won't. You can tell from the way that Rule is rigged. Like you can just tell with his mentality and like the way that he's preaching to these players, like some kind of magic is going to happen in one of these last 2 games. Yeah. Hopefully both. I'm praying for both, but it's going to. I will speak it into existence.
Yeah, I guess the thing that where you lose a little bit, like, we're so close to the program that we know it's like the injury bug that we've hit is inexcusable, like unbelievably bad. The quarterbacks are hurt, and top 2 running backs are down. All the wide receivers. But if you look at these last 2, if you look at Wisconsin. Yeah, Braylon Allen's been gone for the last 3 weeks, and he's probably not going to play on Saturday. Mordecai's been hurt for most of the season.
Honestly, I've been meaning to tweet at him that he should rest his.
Yeah, he should rest. Who's their other quarter or running back who got hurt?
Well, Mordecai had a broken hand, but he came back last week.
Yeah, but then their
Yeah,
other
their second string running back got hurt, and then they
also
have
got
a
hurt.
converted fullback. He's like 240 pounds.
Yeah.
The bruiser, and he converted to running back, so he'd been getting a majority of their snaps in the last
Yeah, so
2 weeks.
that's where it's like, okay, yeah, everybody's like, oh man, like how can he win with these players? Okay, all those players are out for Wisconsin. They're starting top two starting running backs, same as ours. Their quarterback is hurt, same as ours. All of their like defensive players are hurt. Everybody in Wisconsin's hurt. You look at Iowa, their starting quarterback's hurt. Cade McNamara's been done for the year. Their starting running backs hurt. All of their starting tight ends are hurt. So like you're going into the last 2 games, figure it out.
This
right?
is there's no right.
That's where it's like, I think even a couple games ago, I was like, if he finds a way to take this team bowling, like he should win coach of the year. And I still stand by that, but I'm like, I'm losing empathy and sympathy for the fact that like every team we play has no player, and they have no players left. Right. Like
they're in the same situation.
Yeah, this isn't this like heroic. How are we possibly going to win? Everybody is playing with table scraps right now. It's going to be the best. Who's the best coach and who's the best motivated? And I think he can do it. It's just like it's like make your money, right? You're making $7 million a year. Like this is your chance.
Yeah, no, I think we can put it all together. I think that Wisconsin has some holes in their defense that they haven't traditionally had. Like especially their passing defense has been a little bit suspect. Which I know we don't want to pass the ball, but hypothetically we have to at some point, and we'd rather be facing a weak passing defense. And I think that their offense and their identity is just off enough that like it makes it a little bit of a complex situation for them. If like traditionally they want to run the ball, they're not going to be able to run as well as they traditionally do on us. It's going to be just like the Maryland game, and can our secondary step up and keep up with their horses on the outside? Mordecai's good. He's going to be a factor. But if Northwestern can do it, I really like our chances.
It's like you got to be careful with that because Michigan State had just lost 6 straight games by 28 points each, and like then all of a sudden pulled out a miracle, and they probably won't win again the rest of the season. And Maryland probably won't win the rest of the season either. And it's just like, we're playing down. I think there's like, it's like there's the micro and the macro. There's the micro. It's like you just got to freaking win a game so we can make it to a bowl game and we can like have the extra practices. The macro side of this is we need so many more playmakers on offense. It's like not, the micro is like, can we just grind it out and win a couple games? The macro is like, you watch the rest of college football. I mean, it's truly like a different sport. When you watch like Oregon play, and when you watch USC play, and when you watch Washington play, and you watch like Michael Penix play, and you watch like Caleb Williams play, and you watch Bo Nix play, and you watch Jalen Milroe play, and you watch all of these guys, you're like, they're just electric game changers. They're like completing passes left and right. They got Marvin Harrison on the outside. They've got JJ McCarthy running this way and that way. Like that to me is like the bigger problem is you're like, even if we all of a sudden put it together, this is not an elite, like we don't have the elite level talent. So it comes back to like the portal conversation of like, you can load up pretty quick that like, they got to move quick, you got to move quick. You get the bags ready, but like, you need to restock the entire quarterback room, the entire wide receiver room, the entire running back room. I mean, just, it's got to go deep across the board. I just think, we just don't have the talent right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just had to pull it back open, but like 7 of our top 8 recruits, depending on if the athletes stay offensive side, which I think they're expected to, are on the offensive side of the ball. So I mean, you got McMorris, Kalen is going to be a little bit of a development. Roger Gradney, Carter Nelson's obviously a factor and stuff too. So you can tell that they're emphasizing that. Davon Hall is in there as well. You can tell that they're emphasizing the offense as a priority. We've got pretty good numbers coming back on the defensive side of the ball, but I think that the transfer portal, the offense is going to get a complete overhaul. Like even with you've got 26 commits right now, a top 25 class. Hopefully we add a couple more to that, especially like on the O-line, but I just think that the portal is going to be, I think it's going to be good to us this year. I think Rule is figuring things out. He didn't really have time this or too much time this last off season and stuff to pull it all together. we were over scholarship limits and stuff.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very essential offseason, but it starts with Wisconsin and Iowa. And once we win those, we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm scrolling through the transfer portals this year. It's again, you can give them like the pass on it was, you had to rush through it.
You're just starting a little late.
You started late, but it's like, man, there's some misses in here. Eric Gilbert.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, Gilbert, Betts transferred. Josh Fleeks has been probably not as good as I thought he was going to be. Kemp has been fine.
Well, I mean, Fleeks isn't even playing his natural position.
Fleeks is like a running back.
Converted to running back midway through the season.
Yeah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's like he was just trying to get back into college. He has all these new coaches, and I think what was Mr. saying
next year are in a situation where all of these people that are injured nearly all of them can end up coming back too if they want to. Like Washington.
True. Yeah, Washington come back.
But I think he can still take another year.
Yeah.
And then you end up with your running backs room is like replenished again. Like Johnson, I think, can come back as well. Gabe Ervin can come back as well. You add to that in the transfer portal too. You get a quarterback overhaul as well there. Like you end up returning a lot of these guys that we've been missing this year, and then adding to that on top of it with some depth. And not to mention, you've got Coleman, Doss, Jalen Lloyd, all of these guys getting experience now that are
great.
6-7 games under their belt. Here's just to wrap it up. Here's a kind of depressing trivia question for you.
God. Here we go. There we go.
Who is all right? I'll give you the first two, but leading receiving yards for Nebraska right now.
Fedoni's one, isn't he?
Top two. Kemp is one.
Fedoni is two. Fedoni's up there.
Who's third?
Jesus.
This is going to really depress you.
Is it Bullock?
It's Marcus Washington.
Who doesn't even, he's not on the team. It's fantastic.
He's played 6 games.
Yes. He played 6 games? God, I don't even remember him playing 6 games.
Well, yeah, do you know how many receptions he had in those 6 games?
10.
8.
8. Awesome.
8 receptions for 176 yards, 22 yards per catch.
I mean, it's funny you say it because I tweeted last week that Fedoni had.
You want to talk lack of playmakers?
I tweeted last week that Fedoni had 270 yards or whatever it was. I was like, get him the ball, like he's our leading receiver. And I hammered for it because everyone was like, our leading receiver is 270 yards. I was like, yeah, that's
28, and Kemp is 246.
Yeah, I was like, that is pretty bad that our leading receiver has 220 yards through 9 games. Now it's through 10 games. Like, God, it's so bad.
We've thrown 8 touchdown passes.
That's what I mean. So this is we can wrap this up in a second. But like, I definitely have realized about myself. This is a more personal issue, but like, if we're gonna lose anyway, I'd rather have an elite offense and lose that way. Like, I think,
you'd rather be LSU or.
It's just more fun.
It's just like USC, just not even bother on defense.
Yeah,
just not even be serious in practice.
Like I think it's a nuanced thought of like, realistically, I think the culture rule is building around defense is way better than my dumb brain can wrap around. Great, I love it. Build it around the defense. Build it around that. I just think for me as like a hype guy, that's like, I love like a big Trey Palmer touchdown. Yeah. Give me a Trey Palmer touchdown. And we've had like 3 of them.
Everyone had fun with those.
We've had like 1 Coleman, 1 Lloyd, and a field goal block touchdown. Out of it for the whole season.
The rest has been solid defense.
And then it's like I can't even like tweet out like sweet like offensive stats. It's like, because Harburg has 400 yards rushing. Like
it's coming though. I mean, just imagine like that's what you need to refill the Kool-Aid is just imagine this offense with Ramir back, with Irvin back, with a Division I quarterback, with an offensive line that's completely I mean, they're going to have some graduates and stuff. We're going to add to the depth there already in the freshman class. We've got a couple 4-stars coming in, and then you throw in a couple. I mean, the transfer portal can give you eternal hope, but I do think that we already have people gaining experience and people that are coming back that,
that's great.
Are exciting to look forward to. I mean, you
It's
got Washington averaging 22 yards a catch. Somebody get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that Coleman's getting as much play as he's getting and Lloyd's getting as much play, I think that's great.
Orkercher's back. Fedoni is back. Emmett Johnson's back. Irvin is back. Doss is back.
I mean, I think I've seen this a bunch of times. We're a quarterback away from winning the Big Ten West this
Johnson
season.
is back. IGC could come back.
Like, we're truly a quarterback away from winning the Big Ten.
Yep.
But you got to get a guy. All right, let's wrap this thing up. What's your score prediction for Wisconsin?
3-2 would be my ideal, but I think that we can win. I'm going to reverse the script from Maryland, 13-10 Nebraska.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think 10-7 Nebraska wins.
10-7.
One touchdown, one field goal.
Sweet.
What a finish. All right, everybody. If you're still listening, an hour and a half into this, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the HuskGuys podcast.